call this meeting of the Williamsburg-James City County School Board to order for our budget work session. Up there you are. Ms. Serza. Everyone's out of their seat. Would you call the roll, please?
Oh, I'm here.
Here?
Here.
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 Here. And is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Madam Chair, I move approval of the agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Serza.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Item 2.1, this is the discussion of the FY 2021 budget. I'm going to toss it.
Before you do that, Madam Chair, as a member of the School Board of Williamsburg-James City County, I acknowledge that I have an interest in the fiscal year 2021 school budget because my wife is an employee of the WJCC schools. However, I believe that I am able to participate in the consideration of and vote on the budget fairly and in the public interest.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Ms. Cook.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As a member of the School Board of Williamsburg-James City County, I acknowledge I have an interest in the fiscal year 2021 school budget because I'm an employee of the Williamsburg Health Foundation. However, I believe I'm able to participate in the consideration of and vote on the budget fairly and in the public's interest.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will look forward to our second budget discussion this afternoon, and both Ms. Ewing and several other staff members will be providing some information too. If you remember at Budget Work Session 1, we talked about a lot of our mandatory and essential items to keep the division running next year and staff according to SOQ. We're going to add a lot of more information to that this evening. So I'm going to hand straight over to Ms. Ewing to take us through the presentation. And please, if there are questions as we move through it, we will try to move fairly quickly. But if there are questions as we move through, we certainly will answer those.
Thank you, Dr. Herron. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Herron. This afternoon, we will be reviewing the revenue and expenditure information that was shared at the last budget work session. The review of the mandatory or essential expenditures will include the alignment with our strategic goals. We will provide an overview of additional budget requests beyond those already discussed, as well as any savings that we have identified. Then we'll talk about next steps. I do want to remind everyone that this is a preliminary look at the governor's proposed budget and may change depending on actions of the General Assembly over the next couple of months. And again, the information presented this afternoon does not include any adjustments to local contributions from the City of Williamsburg and James City County. At our last budget work session, we only reviewed mandatory or essential expenditures related to staffing requirements, as well as non-negotiable expenditures and expenditure increases from contractual commitments that we have. There are additional cost increases and savings that we will present this afternoon. Based on the governor's budget proposal, state revenue is estimated to go up by $4,661,300. We have also taken a look at other revenue items and estimate an increase of approximately $25,000 for total revenue adjustments of $4,686,300. We have not factored in any local revenue adjustments since it is the first year of the biennium and we do not have information from the localities yet. However, we can look at our historical trend data. This chart represents our local revenue over the past 8 years. Years with an asterisk indicate the first year of a biennium. Fiscal year 19 has a higher increase as that is the year that James Blair opened, so we have not factored that year into the average increase information that is presented. On average, the percentage increase over these years, again not including fiscal year 19, is 2.7%. The average percentage increase in the first year of a biennium, again not including fiscal year 19, is 3%. Now we'll move on to the mandatory and essential expenditure summary that was shared at the last work session. The mandatory and essential expenditure increases total $5.5 million, which includes an average 3% salary increase for eligible staff, as well as some mandated FTEs, contractual increases, and accounts for an increase in our VRS rate over the next year. While building the budget, we use the current strategic plan's principles and priorities to guide the development of the budget to ensure the goals align with the plan and that it supports the needs and goals of the school division, taking into consideration the input of our stakeholders. Mr. Walker, Dr. Worley, and Mr. Landers will now share expenditure requests related to Goal 1, academic achievement, and college and career readiness.
The adaptive reading program, we're currently in the RFP process to find and secure a research-based, explicit, blended program to support students who are reading far below grade level and have diagnosed reading difficulties, estimating this amount as a placeholder during this RFP process.
Good afternoon. The additional IXL licenses will cost approximately $16,000. IXL is a data-driven tool designed to support students toward authentic skill mastery. When students consistently reach proficiency and mastery of IXL skills, there is a direct impact on progress in class and on standardized testing. We currently utilize IXL to support math for every middle school student and for high school students in Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. Each student has an account that is accessible for students, teachers, and parents. The additional purchase increases our number of student licenses from 4,375 to 6,375, which will provide access for every math student across middle and high school. Next is our GRASP membership. The next edition of our GRASP membership is at a cost of $4,500. GRASP stands for Great Aspirations Scholarship, which is a nonprofit organization that seeks to provide assistance to students and families navigating the college application process and financial aid. GRASP provides services to students in each of our 3 high schools related to financial needs for post-secondary education. The GRASP representative meets individually with students and parents and guardians to discuss details related to how to fund post-secondary education directly related to their own personal financial situation. They meet individually with students and parents and guardians to help in completing necessary financial applications, such as the FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid. They also provide a parent program at the annual college and career fair related to financial aid. They spend 1 day a week at each high school supporting students and families. We are currently in year 2 of our partnership with GRASP. The cost to provide services is $15,000 per school. During year 1, GRASP funded $14,250 per school. In Williamsburg, the Williamsburg cost was $750 per school for a total of $2,250. During year 2, GRASP funds $13,500 per school, increasing the per school cost to $1,500 or a total WJCC cost of $4,500. $4,500 is the estimated yearly cost for the division if we continue to renew the contract in the coming years. Next, we have News ELA, which is a resource that provides content literacy for social studies, science, English language arts, and fine arts. It also provides access to current events. It was previously a free resource, and now there is a subscription fee. This will also serve as text for middle school social studies.
It will serve as the text for social studies?
Yes,
Okay,
middle
thank you.
school social studies. Yes, ma'am. Next, we have our health sciences dual enrollment courses. We have 3 new dual enrollment courses proposed through Thomas Nelson Community College for the 2020-21 school year at a cost of $58,000. Access to this content supports work in career and college readiness with a direct connection for students from high school to a possible career in health and medical science. Students choosing one of these 3 courses will attend class at Thomas Nelson Community College during 4th block and earn high school and college credit for the course. The 3 courses are Emergency Medical Assistant, Clinical Medical Assistant, and Clinical Nurse Aide. Our budget allows the opportunity for up to 10 students per high school to participate. Williamsburg will fund 50% of the tuition, and families will fund the remaining 50% plus books and other fees associated with the course. Williamsburg will fund 100% of the tuition and fees for students who are eligible for free and reduced lunch. Finally, we are investigating a potential grant opportunity with Thomas Nelson Community College. This grant could potentially fund tuition for all students in the above courses. Next, we have early college. The additional $35,000 allotted for early college brings us up to the amount we spent during 2019-20 school year due to an increased interest in the program. Moving forward, Williamsburg will continue to cover the cost of the first 6 credits earned in English composition dual enrollment during the fall semester. Moving to the spring semester, Williamsburg will fund 50% of the tuition up to 6 credits, with families covering the remaining tuition, books, and fees. Williamsburg will cover 100% of the cost up to 6 credits for students eligible for free and reduced lunch. This formula for funding is more in line with our surrounding school divisions. The addition of a .5 FTE for an 11-month health and physical education instructional specialist during 2020-21 school year will bring this position to full-time and therefore inspire a quality candidate pool to fill this position and support the growing needs of our curriculum in health and physical education. This position supports curriculum, assessments, driver's education, VHSL expectations, collaboration with athletic directors, and athletic coach support. Additionally, the coordinator keeps the safety of our students and athletes as a top priority while remaining current on best practices. Data on the chart above shows staffing for health and PE positions across surrounding and like school divisions. If this position becomes full-time in Williamsburg, James City County Schools, the person will also oversee the Safe Routes to School program and work with the Assistant Superintendent for Secondary Schools to support our athletic programs. The next personnel request is for an 11-month CTE instructional specialist who will directly support CTE teachers and programs while collaborating with our Director of Career and College Readiness, our career coach, and counselors to expand opportunities for students to support expectations in the Virginia profile of a graduate. The chart above highlights some of the initiatives started through the addition of our career coach. We will increase these activities and expand career planning opportunities with individual students. This position will work with students on identifying appropriate paths and placements based on their individual goals. And one primary focus of this role will be to develop a database of work-based learning opportunities for students to access across the district. This resource requires both the recruiting and educating of community employers, which will include individual meetings with potential employers. This position will also organize and support schools with the implementation of industry credentialing exams. This is critically important due to new diploma expectations which require students to complete either an advanced placement honors course or earn board-approved CTE credential upon graduation.
Truly give 110%.
That's fine. Yep.
The data on this last chart show staffing for career coaches and CTE central office personnel in our surrounding and like school divisions. The request for the CTE instructional specialist will support our work in college and career readiness as well as CTE. It is important to note that Rockingham has a partnership with the local community college to fund career coaches for every school.
Thank you for explaining that.
Yes.
Could you explain about Rockingham again, please?
Yes, ma'am. They have a partnership with their local community colleges, and that's how they fund most to get a coach in each school.
In each high school?
In Rockingham.
Don't have 9 high schools, do they?
I guess middle school as well. School as well?
They may be in a few of the middle schools, but I can check that. It was high school and middle school. I believe you're correct on that.
Yeah, they only have one high school?
Yes, so all their schools. Rockingham?
Right, that's still,
I'll double check that,
okay.
but it was all their schools
All their schools.
when I talked to the person on the phone.
Well, before you go away, can we? Okay.
So just a couple questions
Yes, ma'am.
on the health. I had some questions about the GRASP membership and the news ELA. So for the GRASP membership, it looked like it's like a short-term offer, like like a gradual increase, first year this much, second year? I mean, did you know in advance that it was going to be kind of like an opening offer and
We knew that
escalation?
this, my understanding, we knew that the second year it was going to go up a little bit, but we did even call and confirm today that for years after, their plan is to stay around $4,500. It is a nonprofit organization that works to support schools, so we don't anticipate it going up to the total cost at all.
Okay.
So there's like an introductory
Right, that's what it was,
price.
like an introductory
Yes,
low, okay, to get you in the door and then, okay. But you've been happy with it?
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, and I believe they're really starting to get in that, and I got some of the data today. I know that at War Hill, they've already met with over 80 students, and Lafayette is between 80 and 85, and we think Jamestown's around the same. Right now, they're all in those processes, and this is our first year.
Well, I know how fun those FAFSAs are.
Yes.
They were just so much fun. And then the news ELA, so you said this is replacing textbooks? Is that
Yes.
something that we will see a savings on down the?
We
down-
will
if you
see
could
it.
explain a little bit more
Sure.
about that.
And, so the news ELA will serve as a textbook, which replaces the middle school social studies book. News ELA costs around $28,000. Grade textbooks with 6-year licenses will cost about $190,000. And I have Begowick here who did a lot of this research for us, so if we have any other questions, I can ask him. But definitely it is a cost savings, and they were using it last year as well, under the free prescription. Yes. It's
sorry.
used across different contents. Fine arts can use it, yes,
So it's multidisciplinary.
yes.
Okay. And then just, I'm sorry, just a few more.
problem.
So the health sciences dual enrollment, when you say 10 high school students per class, are you budgeting that assuming that they're all students are eligible for the free and reduced lunch? I guess I'm wondering, how do you get to the 10? Are you being very cautious in assuming 100% coverage? And so therefore, if you have some students that aren't eligible for free and reduced lunch, could you perhaps take more than 10 students?
We could, but we are being cautious with the budgeting. This is our first time rolling this out. So I think the idea was to be a little cautious, but also, don't like turning students away, so it's new, so I guess we'll see. I don't know.
So the funded dollars, if all the 10 students happen to be on free and reduced lunch, we would be able to fund all of them. If there's a mix of students, there could be a savings, or we could perhaps get more students into the program.
That would be, I would think that would be really cool. If you
Absolutely.
get more than 10, even though we understand, this is the pilot, right?
It is, and if you notice, the model that we're going in with is different to the early college model, where we funded everything up to but we funded the first 6 credits, and then the first 6 credits at TNCC as well. And we're changing that model because it's not sustainable over time. As more students come into the program, we want to give access to as many as possible. And so we're now going to fund that at 100% for free and reduced lunch for the 6 credits at TNCC, and other students will pay 50%.
What is that 50%? Like what is 50% of a TNCC?
Per hour,
Yeah,
around
it's
300.
180.
160 something per credit hour. I have it in my chart right
And these
here.
are they 1 credit courses, or are they 3 credit classes?
So they earn 6 credits in English composition in the fall, which is,
Oh, I'm sorry, I was talking
yes.
about the dual
Oh,
enrollment.
I can tell you that.
We have that
Let me
too.
get to my little sheet here. So the emergency medical technician is 8 credits. The clinical medical assistant is 12 credits, and the clinical nurse aide is 8 credits.
Saying they're 3.
Well, the course for EMT, the total would cost $1,665, and the total cost for the clinical medical assistant plus the credentialing exam, which they don't have the cost of that yet, would be $2,347. And the total cost for the clinical nurse aide would be $1,826. And this includes the tuition, a book package, a background check because they have to go through a drug screening for these courses, the uniform, shirt, name tag, and then the credentialing exam.
And so that that 1,800, whatever, that would be what the parent would pay. That's the 50% of, or.
Yes.
Okay.
No, that's
Oh,
the total
oh,
for the
total.
course.
So for them,
Total for the
it would
course.
be, okay, like $900 to get a whole, yeah, that's great.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. I think that's, sorry, I'm taking up.
You're fine.
And any other
it for me.
any other questions for Dr. Worley? She'll be back.
Too far. Mr. Landers.
All right. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Herron. We are requesting one additional position in our enterprise systems team. This team is responsible for Synergy, which is our student information system, and consists of one DBA and one user support specialist. This team performs overall administration of our student information system, including data extracts and interfaces with dependent systems, and also support for our end users such as registrars, data entry, counselors, and other building-based and division users. Over the past several years, additional requirements for support have been added, such as online course request, online registration, and the Synergy Assessment Manager. Several requests, such as the need for the Naviance system, were not able to be met. The overtime expended with this two-person team averages around 25 hours per week, with peaks over 40 hours. The comparison data shown on the screen shows the number of positions in comparable districts that are also dedicated to supporting the student information system. This one position that we're requesting would serve as a user support position that would primarily be our first line of support for our end users, allowing our senior team members to focus more on division-level initiatives. The position would also perform routine data extracts, research end user problems, and be a first line of support for our registrars, data entry, and other school-based users. Thank you.
Mr. Landers?
I have one. You said there was a system request that was not approved.
Yes.
Avion, or what was
Naviance.
that? Naviance.
Yes, pretty much it was a counseling program geared around the Virginia profile of a graduate. It's a pretty extensive system, very good system from what we were able to see, but just because of the additional workload, we were not able to support that request.
And this added personnel would be able to fulfill that need in some ways?
Yes, we would be able to take some of the more routine day-to-day duties away from our DBA, put it to this position, therefore allowing our DBA to support initiatives such as that.
Excellent.
Mr. Landers, thank you
Yes,
for
ma'am.
being here. Isn't there an IT person at each school?
Not at each school. We do have a team of building technicians that rotate among the schools to support all of the laptops, desktops, projectors, other things that are in the buildings.
And how many people are on that team?
11?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just something moving forward for the budget that would be helpful to me is when we are comparing WJC to other divisions, if we're consistent in who we're comparing to. For example, for the health and PE instructional specialist, we have Augusta through York, and then it looks like we've got the same divisions for the CTE, but then when you look at the IT specialist, you've got different, it just would be useful or more helpful to me as a board member if we kept all of those divisions, comparisons, consistent.
Right. There will be a few positions tonight where we do go outside of our normal peer group and region group because some systems, for example, there's an MTSS position coming up we're going to talk about soon, and a lot of systems are not implementing MTSS in their division. And so we had to go outside of our normal peer group to do that. But we will certainly go back and make sure we look more closely at that.
If I could just, I agree with Ms. Hummel, and I know that we have two different benchmarks that we use, our nearby and our peer divisions, but even if, it would be good to see, Augusta not implementing MTSS or whatever, so that it's comforting to know that we're using the same
Okay.
cohort for benchmarking.
Yep.
Our mandatory and essential expenditures related to Goal 2, educational equity, include special education FTEs, as well as increased costs for special education contractual services. Mr. Walker and Ms. Bourgeois will now share with you the additional expenditure requests related to Goal 2.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, school board members, Dr. Harum. WJCC's English learning population has grown significantly over the last 10 years, from 250 English learners in 2010-11 to currently 741, which is about 6.5% of our total student enrollment. The current Virginia Standards of Quality requires a minimum of 1 ESL teacher for every 59 identified English learners served. The governor has proposed a new staffing ratio of 1 to 50, but that has not yet taken effect. Please keep in mind that this is the minimum requirement and does not take into account the varying needs of students with lower English language proficiency levels, limited or interrupted formal education, and the acclimation into our learning environment, schools, and community. Currently, WJCC is staffed with 17 ESL teachers, which equals a ratio of 1 ESL teacher per 44 English learner students. We have seen a steady increase in the number of English learners with lower English language proficiency levels, known as ELP levels. Currently, 65% of all WJCC English learner students are at a level 3 or below. 37% are at a level 2 or below. 91% of the English learners in grades kindergarten to 2nd grade are level 3 or below. This is particularly important since numerous research studies have found that students who are not reading on level by 3rd grade are at an increased risk of not graduating on time, compared to a child who does read proficiently by that time. Finally, 78% of 9th through 12th grade English learners are level 3 or below, a factor which can significantly impact graduation rates.
So what are the levels? 1 through?
1 through 4, and then monitor status. Level 1 and 2, the highest need. While the Standards of Quality ratio represents the minimum number of ESL teachers required to provide services for our English learners, staffing at this ratio does not take into account staffing of the levels 1 and 2 students for increased direct support. Some school divisions are choosing to use a level of need model to staff their ESL teachers by weighting the level of support. For example, students with a level 1 are weighted the most at 3 points. Level 2 students weighted as 2 points, levels 3 and 4 students weighted at 1 point, and then monitor status students are weighted as a half point, because they are not receiving direct instructional services. The Department of Defense Educational Agency has a method of weighting EL students based on level of need for support and a recommended ratio of 1 ESL teacher for every 40 EL students. Using that level of need weighting method, our EL enrollment by need would actually equate to 1,092 students instead of our 741. If we applied the current Virginia SOQ staffing ratio to this weighted level of need model, the 1 to 59 SOQ ratio would require 19 ESL teachers. If we staffed at the governor's proposed ratio of 1 to 50, using that same weighted level of need model, we would require 22 ESL teachers. And lastly, if we staffed at the recommended Department of Defense Educational Agency ratio of 1 to 40, we would need 27 ESL teachers. So we currently have 17.
And so 17 puts you at 1 to 44?
Yes.
And you're asking for 3 additional?
In this final slide, you can see the comparison some of our like and surrounding school divisions. We have the second highest teacher-to-student ratio. The addition of 3 ESL teachers would bring our current ratio of 1 to 44 down to 1 to 38, which would bring us a little closer in alignment to Bedford, York, Newport News, and Hampton.
And you're also assuming that your population doesn't increase.
Yeah.
So if your
Correct.
population increases, which is what we have seen in the past, rather significantly, that would
Right.
make your numbers different.
be different. That's correct.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Herron. WJCC Schools is currently in year 5 of implementation of a multi-tier system of supports. As this work has grown, an identified essential expenditure is a position to monitor and support the division level and school level implementation process. Our schools have embraced the MTSS framework as a crucial foundation for their school culture of continuous improvement and equity for all students. As this work has grown, the need to have readily available support now exceeds our capacity to provide that support, as the requests outweigh the availability of staff who have willingly taken on this additional duty. Listed here are some of the essential duties for this position. Currently, if a school-level team has a request for professional development, additional resources, or the opportunity to problem solve around identified challenges and interventions, they may have to coordinate with a number of staff across departments and outside of our division. We have relied heavily on the 3 state VTSS coaches for support, which is not sustainable. Now is the time to create that support framework within our division staff while we still have the state support to help implement it effectively using their experiences with other divisions. Please note the divisions listed on the slide are not our typical neighboring and like divisions, as not all divisions have chosen to participate in this initiative, which is referred to under a variety of names to include VTSS, MTSS, and PBIS. This slide does provide examples of divisions across the state who are implementing a tier system of supports and the positions that they have put in place to support that.
Ms. Bourgeois?
Yes.
Okay, so has the division over the last couple of years had some shifts in staffing around responsibility for MTSS because of grant funding? I mean, when we won the award a couple years ago, the team that was in place leading that, are they still here in the division?
No, ma'am.
Okay,
No, one of them left and is now a state coach.
okay.
And another left for another division, and we have realigned those responsibilities.
Right, so there's a little bit of a vacuum.
So, yes.
Okay. And then in terms of the essential responsibilities, the data collection, will that help the division look at its discipline data and align that with MTSS work and
Correct. It would
okay.
allow us a more proactive approach to using that data.
I think one of the key things that there's a conversation and we're very aware of is disproportionality in discipline. And we do have the mechanism to look at the discipline. We set up structures in schools, but there's no person focused on the interventions at the classroom level to start to impact disproportionality in our system. And so the vision behind this role is not only to support MTSS structures within every school and be a liaison for that and a spear person for that, but also to spearhead our disproportionality.
Right. That was the point of my question. Yeah. And also, isn't there a software that comes with the MTSS work that kind of overlays with the student information system that allows you to better analyze that data?
Yes, there's a school-based software. We don't have it at the division level.
Oh,
It's a
okay.
school-based software
And what's that
they're
called?
able to use. It's Swiss.
Swiss, yeah. And so would this person work with schools
Absolutely.
to better analyze their Swiss data?
Yes.
So I just have a question. I noticed on this chart, it doesn't have WJCC. So what would ours say in positions with full-time leadership? What would be the information over there?
It would be blank.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
So we do have a supervisor that supervises the whole program, but we've no one on the ground out working with schools.
Right, thank you, Dr. Herron.
Yes.
So currently, does that just rise up to the assistant superintendents to do?
Dr. Nev?
Dr. Nev works with me, and we try to jointly coordinate that across departments.
Okay.
For the record, Dr. Nev is smiling. Seems
She's
to enjoy
equal
that.
to 2 FTEs.
Some days more than that. Also related to Goal 2 is a request for 2 additional behavior intervention specialists. Listed here are some of the essential duties of this position. The behavior intervention specialist provides direct assistance and support based on evidence-based practices to students, teachers, and school-based teams. Currently, the one specialist we have has a caseload of 38 students across 12 schools, and that's with the addition of 14 students just since October. This support involves, but is not limited to, conducting observations of students to identify antecedents, triggers, and other variables that impact their behavior, providing comprehensive solution-focused feedback to teachers, modeling appropriate strategies and techniques to handle the behaviors, working with students one-on-one or in a small group setting to teach positive behavioral strategies, supporting teachers in the classroom to assist with behavior management and provide in-context demonstrations to help build their capacity, participate in formal meetings such as IEP meetings, FBA meetings, with school personnel, families, and outside agencies, and provide training to all stakeholder groups, so that includes our administrators, teachers, bus drivers, support staff, to increase their knowledge of techniques to respond to student behavior.
Ms. Bourgeois, I
Yes.
have a question about the behavior interventionist. So, you said currently this one person has a caseload of 38,
Students.
and then 14 additional?
No, that includes the
That includes
14,
14
but
additional.
just, the 14 have been added just since October, so we're seeing an increased need.
And so is this current position responsible for actively overseeing every student that has a behavioral intervention plan, or just like severe plans? Like, what's the criteria?
Well, it's based on significance of need, so no, there are more students than that have a behavior intervention plan, and
Could you
that
give
would not be
me an
possible.
idea of, like, of all of our 1,800 or 11,000 students, like, how many have BIPs? Like,
Can look into
I'm just
that. I
curious.
would not want to make a guesstimate. I'll get you that information.
I guess it is, like, so around 1,800 SPED students, and then, yeah, I'm just curious what that,
Students without a disability can also have an FBA and a BIP. It is not just for students with
I'd like
disability.
to know that number across the division. I'm just curious.
So this graph, those colors are different than my colors on the screen, but is the one for the entire school year and the other one for just half of it?
Correct. So if you notice down below, the green is for 2018-19, which was the first year we had the position, and the blue, or whatever the color may be for you, is just for September through December of this year. So it clearly indicates a significant increase in need.
So what you're telling us is you think you could keep 2 more FTEs busy?
Very
Absolutely.
busy.
With 16 schools, there are some schools that he's not even able to get to. It's just too
interesting.
much for one person.
There's one thing that's come across in my meetings with teacher leadership groups, like Teacher Forum, and with WJCEA, and the one thing that's coming up consistently are increases in behaviour that teachers are unable to cope with. And one of the key areas that the behaviour intervention specialists cannot get to right now is training teachers and building their capacity to address the more severe needs of our students. Is that a fair
Yes,
comment?
and I think that's one of the reasons we're asking for 2, because we think that what the majority of the time is used for now is reactive. And in order to be able to provide the training, we would use one of those positions primarily as a training focus to be able to be more proactive in building capacity with our staff.
Ms. Bourgeois, I'm just curious too, so when you're able to give me the number of the behavior plans across the division, I'm curious to know, like, what that looks like across K-12. Because anecdotally, I've heard there's been an increase in the number of behavioral issues kind of at the younger level with our kindergartners. And so I'm just curious, like, is it heavy, at the elementary level? What, like, or is it, just curious, are kids changing? It's not our secondary, I'm just, like, how is it spread? Is it spread evenly?
We see it across all grade levels, but certainly in the past few years, as we talked about at our last budget meeting, we are seeing increased behaviors at a much younger age, especially that transition from Bright Beginnings to kindergarten. We're seeing some additional needs.
So the behavior intervention specialist, one more question. We don't have any of those roles filled, right?
We have one.
We do have one.
For the-
Okay.
That's
'Cause I
new.
thought
Division.
earlier you said that we wouldn't have any of this filled out. I think to Miss,
MTSS.
That's the
MTSS.
student
Okay.
services specialist, who
Okay,
would work
thank you.
very closely with these positions. Obviously, a lot of this would align.
okay. So my question would be, excuse me, and part of that was answered with training. What are some of the other qualifications for a behavior intervention specialist?
So we look for someone who has some significant experience in addressing student behaviors. It's preferred that they have a specific certification, but that's not necessarily required because there's a lot of demand in this day and age. But we would prefer a BCBA or an ABA certification, which means they've had specific coursework and a certain number of hours with that.
Go ahead.
Do you envision that these people would be hired from within our existing staff and then we would backfill, or would they have to be hired from outside of the school division?
It could be either one. It's really going to depend on who has those background experiences. The one that we've hired, that we have on board, came to us from New Horizons and had a very rich level of experience addressing student behavior.
So these positions are really building an infrastructure within WJCC to proactively work with students in the classroom and at the building level to create a culture of safety and address disproportionality and to address the extreme behaviors in the classroom.
Correct. And to provide that support to teachers and help them with some training and building capacity.
I think one of the things we've discussed when it comes to teachers is not just salary, but the environment
Right.
that they're now working in. And so there's a huge need for support, and it's right here at this level. These are not central office people who will sit in central office. They will be every day in classrooms helping teachers.
Disabling conditions that typically require the most intensive level of behavior support fall into the categories of autism, developmental delay, and emotional disturbance. According to the December 1 child count reports from 2018 to 2019, we did experience an increase in student identification in all three of these areas. And while this is not to say that only students that fall within these disability categories exhibit behavioral challenges, these are the categories that consistently require the support of the behavior intervention specialists, and therefore we use it as an example of how we're seeing increased need. The ELS Family Outreach Specialist position is recommended to support our strategic plan equity goal. Prior to this year, these services were received through a contract with Child Development Resources. With changes in their programming, a part-time temporary position was put in place for this school year to provide that support. Currently, this position provides support to parents and students in a variety of student-focused meetings throughout the division. As time permits, the staff member participates in school and division functions such as parent nights and the curriculum fair. With the current part-time status of this position, there are many requests that cannot be filled. Typically, these are the group school activities and functions. While some meetings, such as eligibility or discipline, are prioritized, there are meetings that cannot be covered within the established hours. As you can see, even with these parameters, there have been 12 out of 16 weeks where weekly time has gone over the 20 hours per week allotted to this temporary position. For WJCC, this position also goes far beyond interpretation and translation needs. It serves as a critical liaison between the division and our growing L population. It helps parents and students feel welcome and able to understand the policies and expectations. Examples of the work and impact of this position include promoting relations between the division's educators, parents, students, and the community to support improved student learning and academic achievement through language interpretation, encouraging parent involvement by bridging language gaps among Spanish-speaking families, helping our educators better understand Spanish-speaking community challenges and needs, and interacting with multiple programs and agencies to provide comprehensive wraparound services engaging all stakeholders involved in the student's educational process. As a comparison, a number of our neighboring and like school divisions do have at least one FTE position that is identified for translation interpretation services, and that is noted here.
Ms. Bourgeois, is this, a couple of months ago, James Blair came to us and talked about, you're nodding, so you know what I'm talking, you want to finish my?
They had the parent night.
Okay,
and-
right.
And this position fully supported that, and we do it as we're able to, but the hours are very limiting right now.
Didn't that result to nearly 100% participation for the identified population? Wasn't it?
Dr.
Okay,
Tillman
Dr.
is
Tillman.
nodding her head
Okay.
yes.
All right. So, pretty good.
Yes. They reached a lot of families that evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Herron. There are two expenditures related to Goal 3 of the strategic plan, Elevate Beyond Excellence. The first item, a multi-language communication app, supports Strategy 3 to, quote, expand communication tools and resources to more fully engage culturally and linguistically diverse populations. The multi-language communication app will help connect teachers with families by rostering classes into the app automatically and allowing teachers to send messages in English that are then translated automatically to the language selected by the recipient. And likewise, it fosters two-way communication by allowing the recipient to respond in their native language and translate back to English for the teachers. So instead of just pushing information out, this really fosters two-way communication with families. There is a free version of this app that is currently being used by some of our staff members, but it is limited in the number of messages that can be sent by each user, and also the length and type of messages that can be sent. In addition to use at the classroom level, the division can use Remind as another tool to communicate important closure and emergency notifications in languages other than English. Remind translates currently into 5 languages, however, they are expanding. Currently, approximately 50 WJCC teachers are already using Remind. Others are using a similar app called Talking Points. We're launching a pilot of this for the remainder of the school year in the 2nd Division. And we've moved some communications projects around in the budget this year to do so. However, if we were to sustain use of this, we would ask for the additional funding. So, for example, this year we decreased some of our print projects and decreased the level of surveys that we were doing in a previous contract year.
Ms. Cox, so the 23,000 that's here, that's something that we would anticipate being an annual cost?
Yes, ma'am. We are able to purchase cooperatively off a cooperative contract with York County, and I believe another school division on the peninsula is looking to do the same thing. And so we don't have to go out to an RFP because this has already been established as the competitive price, and that we could do so off of their contract for each year. And this is the amount for at least 2 subsequent years.
And with this amount, that gives the level of access, unlike with the freebie. So this gives K-12 access to all of our
ma'am.
teachers, all of the
Yes,
families.
ma'am. And we would also provide some module training that people could go online, so it wouldn't pull them out of the classroom. They could go online, they could see how it works. Currently, with the free version, teachers have to build their own roster, but we would work with the Department of Technology to make that a seamless thing for teachers, so it wouldn't take their time to do that.
Exciting.
That would be neat.
Amal?
I'm fascinated by this. It just sounds really cool. How does is the teacher typing things in, or are they leaving a message and then it gets, how does it
So
exactly work?
primarily, it's through, you can text message, you can email. It doesn't require you to, as a teacher, use your personal cell phone number. You can text from your personal cell, but it encodes it and it gives them a delivery number, if you will. So the teachers aren't having to give out their personal cell phone number, but the parents, when they sign up, they're told that's the number that the teacher's messages will be coming from. So it allows them to text, it allows them to email. You can have voice calls, but there's a little bit of a lag in that. It's sent to Remind translates, and then it's delivered, and it's more of an automated translation.
And is this going to be used by the teachers on an ongoing, like, this is just, reminder, this book report is due on Friday, that kind of a thing?
Test tomorrow.
And then,
Yes.
and then also would personalize it to say, we've had some issues that I think you need to come and talk to.
Correct.
Whatever, so.
It could be something as simple as, look at this work from your child and it's attached. It could be something that said, this assignment hasn't been turned in, want to follow up, or I'd like to schedule a meeting or a phone call. And it would also allow us to help a little bit with those meetings when we know that we might need the interpreter position that Ms. Bourgeois was just talking about, to help know in advance when we're going to need to schedule some of those, if they're able to communicate on an ongoing basis with parents.
And then on the other side, they would need a cell phone.
Or
See?
email, or phone call, yes.
But it would, not just a phone, it would have to be something that receives texts or.
They can use just a voice call,
Oh, they
but
can.
again, that just has a little bit of a delay because it's almost like a relay. The message is created, it goes to Remind, they translate it, and then it's sent.
Can you tell us the languages? Spanish must be one.
Yes, so right now it is Spanish, French, German, Portuguese, and Chinese. And Spanish and Chinese are both among our top languages. We've provided them a list with our most spoken languages other than English, and they have that list on their plate to look and see how quickly they could begin translation services.
What were the top two again? Spanish and?
Chinese.
Chinese.
Chinese, okay, thank you.
Moving on to the second item under Goal 3, web accessibility. Web accessibility allows people with disabilities to access all web content. The U.S. Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights has identified the following as the most common barriers to prevent people with disabilities from accessing content on schools, division, and state education websites. Missing alternative text describing images for blind and low vision users, content inaccessible for users unable to navigate without a mouse, inaccessible color combinations for textual information for low vision users, uncaptioned or inaccurately captioned videos, and inaccessible documents. WJCC Schools has been working purposefully since 2016 to remove these barriers from the division and school websites. The recent redesign of WJCCschools.org and the school websites has ensured that color contrasts, font sizes, and styles, along with navigation, make the site more accessible for all users. In addition, we post all of our videos on the division's YouTube channel, which provides closed captioning. So why do we need an accessibility monitoring system? Well, it provides a weekly scan of the pages, images, videos, and documents on WJCCschools.org, as well as each school website. It alerts the communications team anytime there's a descriptive tag that is missing from a photo, there's a broken link, when a PDF document cannot be accessed by a screen reader, etc. It suggests a recommended fix and improves efficiencies for correcting mistake that occurs in more than one place on the site. So, for example, if there's an issue that is on more than one page or document, we can fix that once rather than having to fix it 5, 10, or 20 times, depending on how many times it appears. The system scans approximately 6,000 pages and 700 documents weekly. It provides us with a readability score that indicates the education level needed to understand the content on our sites. So this is very helpful when we're reviewing and removing some of the educational jargon that some of our parents might not understand or that we get into the habit of using. Based on all of these things, it's just not physically possible for an employee to dedicate the time to scan and perform these tasks. And so you may wonder why we would scan them each week if we fix them once. Because, again, things that we're linking to might be changing at any given time, and so we have to continually monitor, because we're responsible not only for our content, but ensuring that when we're linking out, that the pages that we're linking to are correct.
That sounds like magic. I mean,
We think so.
yeah, yes, awesome.
Go ahead.
And you currently don't have any, this isn't an additional, or is this additional to a system you already have
So
to
again,
monitor?
this is something that this year, in meeting with the communications and engagement team, we identified as a need, as something that we have been lacking. And so we changed some of our priorities for the year and took some other communication campaigns off the table, because this really is essential. We are required by law
that's what I
to
wanted.
provide this service, and we
Yeah.
have not been doing everything we can. We made a lot of strides since 2016, but there's still more to do.
So I'm not sure if everyone understands that we need to comply with the ADA, or we will be in violation.
Correct.
And so I think maybe if everyone understands that as well, that this isn't something that we can kind of,
Without getting too deep into the weeds, how were we complying before, and where are the gaps?
So, most school divisions, I would say, across the country, are facing a similar issue where there was a lack of understanding of all of the requirements to support accessibility on the website until a few years ago. An advocacy group contacted the Office of Civil Rights and brought many of these things to not only their attention and K-12, but also state departments of education, higher ed. And so I think that as far as captioning, that was something that people just didn't automatically think of, or again, a lack of knowledge about accessing, being able to tab through a website rather than use your mouse. That's a barrier. And so those were some of the things that we didn't think about. And many years ago, when you designed a school website, you designed it to be pretty. And now you're really looking at how is it being used? How are we ensuring that the fonts and colors and information and pictures that you choose to use, that they're accessible rather than they are window dressing on the site?
What's the readability level? What do we strive for?
Actually, a good benchmark is a middle school level. That way, folks who might be not, haven't completed as much education as others, who might be visiting our site, that's a pretty good level to strive for. We get there some days.
is the company Site Improve? by any chance?
No, it's not. The company that we're currently using is Moncito.
Questions for Ms. Cox?
Thank you.
Our mandatory and essential cost is related to Goal 4, Safety and Security, and includes 6 additional FTEs for school counselors and an increase in contractual services for cloud hosting of our student information system database, as well as increased costs for our radio maintenance agreement with neighboring localities. I would like to note that we've received updated information regarding that radio maintenance agreement, and it has decreased from $62,000 to $41,000. Dr. Worley and Ms. Bourgeois will now share with you additional expenditure requests related to Goal 4.
Good evening again. As outlined in Strategic Plan Goal 4, the safety and security of our students is a top priority for Williamsburg-James City County Schools. One essential support needed is the addition of another athletic trainer to support the needs of our 4 middle schools. We currently have 1 middle school trainer supporting 4 middle schools. It is the goal to have an athletic trainer on site for most home games and to support the needs of the home and visiting teams. This is not possible with 4 middle schools to support by 1 person. During our current school year, through January 14th, 2020, we've had 116 total injuries across sports at all middle schools. For 47 cases, we did not have an athletic trainer on campus to support the student. Another need to support the safety and security of our middle schools is the addition of 2 security officers. Last year, we originally requested 4 security officers, which would provide a full-time person at each middle school. The implementation of this position was successful and an outstanding resource for principals and schools. This addition will give each middle school one full-time security officer to support the needs and routines of our schools on a daily basis. The data on the chart shows staffing for security positions across surrounding school divisions.
Dr. Rowley, just
Yes,
to go
ma'am.
back to the athletic trainers, so
Yes.
do we have one now for all 4 middle schools?
For middle school, yes, ma'am. We have one that's contracted to serve the middle schools.
And so we want to increase,
We're asking for a second person.
The two.
have a total of 2
Contracted
among,
services.
among the
Contracted.
4.
Contracted
Not
services.
FTEs, but contracted.
That's what I'm trying to understand. So they're not full-time?
So right now, we only have one. No, they're contracted, and they come out for games, large practices, as much as available. We try to get them, especially at games. And then, since we have one, if there's 2 games happening at the same time,
Then they just pick one?
yeah, that's shared.
So, but if, even by increasing that to a total of 2, we're still not going to have 100% coverage, right? With 4 schools, there's probably always.
Games, is it mainly
We-
for extracurricular?
We try to have them there for games. It would be nice to have them at practices where typically injuries, you're prone to get injuries in certain sports more than others, but we just went for games right now, the majority of the time, in some practices, because we only have one.
But so does 2 get us 100% coverage at all of our middle school games?
Probably close.
I think we can look at the scheduling, and certainly if we're aware that there are 2 resources available, then we will certainly be talking to the schools about scheduling and trying to make it a priority to have a trainer at every game.
So I support trainers, frankly, at all practices and games, because kids don't just get injured at games. But I guess it would be helpful for me to understand how other school divisions structure this. I'd like to see more trainers at the high school level, for that matter, because you don't even get trainers at those. And I've seen kids get injured with no trainer around, and it's not great. So, but I'd just like to know how other divisions handle it. Do they contract for all trainers? Do they have FTEs, high school, middle school? I'd just like to understand that a little bit better.
I can get that for you.
Yeah, thank you.
WJCC Schools currently has 1 RN in every clinic and 1 itinerant LPN assisting our RNs, particularly in schools with a higher population of students and/or a higher acuity level. The LPN also assists with mandated screenings at all schools. As the number of students with serious and complex health conditions continues to grow, the need for licensed nurses in our clinics is essential to ensure the safety of all students. Substitute nurses are extremely difficult to secure. We currently have 1 available RN sub for the entire division, and her availability is limited. In addition, the sub is not familiar with many of our students with health conditions, so the level of care may not be as consistent. An additional LPN would provide more support for our larger schools and afford us to cover clinics where the nurse is absent in order to provide consistent and quality care. This slide shows how we cover when the nurses are not available. The lack of clinic coverage is a critical issue for the school nurses who struggle to get any time away from the clinic for meetings, lunch, appointments, family matters, illness, and continuing education conferences required for licensure. They are all very hesitant to leave the clinic without a nurse due to the level of complex health conditions we are seeing in our schools. For your reference, the medical designee is a trained staff member. It's usually an office staff member or an administrator, but it is not someone with a significant medical background.
Question, for these incidences, do you consider them like days? Like they would be pulled over for that day or a few hours?
So where the nurse is pulled over from the other clinic, that's for a full day. That's because we have something that's totally uncovered. The medical designee could be for a full day. It's often so that they can attend meetings within the building, but it could also be if we just don't have coverage for the day.
So this is really maybe floater position?
Correct. This would be a second itinerant LPN position so that we would be better equipped to cover clinics when the RNs are out.
This 47 number is different than the athletic trainer 47 number, right?
Correct. Listed here are just some of the many health conditions we are seeing in our student population this school year. In addition to providing care for these students, our nurses dispense daily medications, assess students for illness throughout the day, respond to emergencies regularly, provide case management, and provide training to staff. And you'll see by this chart that we have a number of students that have fairly significant health needs, with over 1,000 students with asthma, 89 students with a seizure disorder.
Ms. Bourgeois, what about our staff? I mean, our staff obviously must have some of these also, especially, I mean, diabetes, allergies. How is that attended to in the schools?
They will respond to emergency situations with our staff and support them as they need. They'll do blood pressure checks. They do work to support the staff also.
Ms. Bourgeois, I have kind of an unrelated question. Going back, we didn't go over the increases in sped. Did I miss that? Did we start with L
That was the mandatory from the last meeting,
from last meeting?
the
Okay.
8 positions.
That's right, sorry.
Yeah.
Are there additional questions?
Yeah, so I figured it out. The first slide of each goal is the mandatory
Mandatory.
things from the last meeting. Yeah. Took me a while to get there, but that's what
Glad-
it is.
Okay, I'm glad, yeah.
Yes, we literally, as Ms. Ewan said at the beginning, we took all of last week's and dropped it in by
Right.
go so that it's all going to
Added
fit
more.
together.
Took me a little while to figure it out, but I got it.
Clearly, it took me longer.
It's all there.
For Goal 5, Human Capital and Positive Culture, our mandatory or essential expenditures include a 3% average salary increase for eligible staff and an increase in our VRS costs based on a rate increase as proposed in the governor's budget. As Mr. Baker presented at the last budget work session, we are currently estimating an increase to our health insurance rates of 5%. Currently, approximately 1,400 employees elect health insurance coverage. Based on prior budget conversations, we are planning for employees to absorb this increased cost so that we are able to put more of a focus on compensation for all employees by giving a 3% average salary increase. Based on a question after the last budget work session, we have compiled data from the approved and adopted budgets from surrounding divisions for the current fiscal year to provide a comparison of what the split in total compensation between salary and benefits is. We spend approximately 69% of our total compensation budget on salaries and 31% on benefits, which is slightly higher on the benefit side when comparing to our neighboring divisions. Dr. Worley and Mr. Walker will now share with you additional requests related to Goal 5.
Goal 5 of our strategic plan focuses on human capital and positive culture. This next request will fund 3 additional assistant principals to support our high schools. This position will be 11 months. It is important to note that this will not impact the current high school assistant principal positions as they will remain 12 months. The current expansion of expectations for high schools as outlined by the Virginia Department of Education through career and college readiness, the profile of Virginia graduate, and graduation requirements, along with the growing set of academic and social-emotional needs of our students, create a need for additional support on administrative teams at our schools. The instructional leadership, management of discipline, increasing number of students with individual education plans or 504 plans, the extra support needed to support student social emotional needs, on-time graduation expectations, and finding career connections for all students, along with being visible and managing all of the after-school and evening activities and athletic events require much more of a presence than 3 individuals can cover in one school community. It is critical that we continue to enhance visibility and provide increased teacher support while continuing to build our administrative capacity over time. The next slide shows the average number of assistant principals per high school in our regional school divisions and our like school divisions.
Yeah, and I'd just like to point out that Poquoson and York County, who also have 2, their student bodies are different than ours. demographically speaking. So the difference between 11th and 12-month APs, does that, I know it helps in the building, it helps build a pipeline for administration going in our divisions so we can retain really high-quality leaders, but will there be a sense of segregation of duties or a sense of otherness between the two and the one because of the 1 month difference?
I think it gives, like you said, an opportunity for growth in our leadership. Typically, I've worked with this before in positions as a principal where we've had 12-month APs and a 1 or sometimes more to 11 months. Typically, that month of July is when that person is not in the building. It's a time where, the teams are kind of rotating vacations anyway, but it gives the critical time when you're ending a school year and in August when you're planning for a school year that the whole team will be there and able to. They'll be pretty much a part of everything on the administrative team except for anything that would need to take place in the month of July.
So is this something that you're viewing as long-term, or was this more like it's just a little less expensive, so let's ask for it, and in a couple of years we might go to 12 months?
It's a little bit less expensive, obviously. That's always a reason behind. However, we feel with 2 12-month, 2 of our former principals have had this model in their schools and it's worked very well. To have one 11-month as a moving into the position at 11 months and then moving to 12.
Okay. So you think that will be a long-term,
I
that
believe-
could last a while?
Absolutely.
And then a question, so you divide that by 3, you've got the salary and benefits, you're budgeting for 98,000. So what would a 12-month assistant principal, how would you budget for that? Are we
The total would be 330,000, 110,000 each.
Okay, so we're talking about a 12,000.
$1,000.
It's significant. It's one of our other positions.
Got it.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to share information and needs for the elementary schools. We ask that you give strong consideration for the request for an assistant principal to be allocated and assigned to the Bright Beginnings pre-K program. Principal Amy Gulick proudly serves as the principal of the Bright Beginnings pre-K program, and as we all know, a principal wears many hats and has many responsibilities. Currently, Principal Gulick has 365 students in the Bright Beginnings program spread across 5 school sites. 225, or 62% of the enrolled students currently receive special education services. She has 36 teachers, 45 instructional assistants, several speech pathologists, and 1 instructional specialist working with her to support our Bright Beginnings pre-K students. There is a definite need for administrative support in the form of an assistant principal to be added to assist Principal Gulick. As a point of reference, you can see 5 of our elementary schools in comparison to the number of students with IEPs receiving special education services and the percent of the total population. In fact, none of the elementary, middle, or high schools come close to the same percentages as shown in the chart for Bright Beginnings pre-K program. Mrs. Gulick needs an assistant principal to better support the administrative needs of the pre-K program. As another point of reference, you will notice a similar number of instructional staff between Bright Beginnings and the 5 elementary schools. However, there are many more instructional assistants in the pre-K program. Mrs. Gulick is solely responsible for the observations and evaluations of all these staff. The other elementary schools all have an assistant principal to provide support there. Additional state requirements linked to the Virginia Preschool Initiative, the VPI grant, will require classroom observations using the state observation tool, which is quite extensive, labor and time intensive, and well beyond what is expected for other administrators to conduct in our schools. Last, professional development is very unique for the Bright Beginnings program. Rarely can the principal rely on her faculty being able to utilize division-provided PD. The specific needs of the pre-K program require the principal to plan, secure resources, and assist in the delivery of professional development while also monitoring the completion of license renewal. No other principal has this sole unique need without direct division support of PD. In closing, Mrs. Gulick needs an assistant principal to help her provide the best possible leadership, support, resources, coaching, and more for our Bright Beginnings Pre-K program.
Mr. Walker, I'm sure you explained this and I just missed it. The charts with the 5 other elementary schools.
Yes, ma'am.
As opposed to 9, why are these?
I selected those 5. They were somewhat close to the total student enrollment, not far off.
Okay, thank you.
I chose not like Stonehouse, Matoka would be, you know,
Okay, that's
double the
helpful.
size.
Thank you.
Additional question?
Thank you.
Here you will see the mandatory and essential increases previously presented as related to Goal 6, organizational efficiency and effectiveness. These total approximately $512,000. Mr. Landers and Mr. Snipes will now present additional expenditure increases related to Goal 6.
With this request, we are requesting one additional position in our network support team. Cyber threats have become more and more targeted to educational entities. The Consortium for School Network reports that phishing, denial of service, and ransomware attacks are the most common and increasing attacks facing school divisions. In addition, according to Gartner, the FBI and industry watchdog reports, cybercrime has increased by 67% over the past 2 years, with an estimated attack every 11 seconds predicted by 2021. Locally, we are able to view various statistics from our network firewall that shows various network breach attempts on a daily basis. As one example, during the Saturday between Christmas and New Year's, which is normally a very non-active day, there were 348 attempts to gain access to our network, with the attacks rate ranging from botnets to spyware. The engineering team is responsible for overall architecture and security of an increasingly complex network, as well as responding to daily issues and requests that come in from our end users. The existing engineering team averages 28 hours of overtime per week, with peaks in excess of 45 hours. Within this team, the network support is provided by the senior network engineer and 1 junior network engineer. The comparison data on the screen shows the number of positions in comparable districts that are dedicated to supporting the network. And I will admit that it was difficult getting apples-to-apples comparisons with some of these because they named them all different things. In some places, they're IT specialists, other places, network engineers, other place, computer support positions. So I did my best to get a true apples-to-apples comparison with this.
Mr. Landers, and
Yes, ma'am.
to that point, I think I'm just thinking about the public looking at this information. Because earlier you talked about the other IT specialists. I don't doubt that we need them both, and and they have distinctly different jobs. But I just wonder if we can make that more evident in some way, because it kind of, both IT specialists. So
They are, well, they're both within the technology department. One would be a user support specialist dedicated to the SIS. The other is specifically to network. So we can certainly look at that.
Junior engineer, or is there another term that would be distinguished between them?
This would be specifically a junior network engineer, yes. This
Probably a
position would
better
be.
term. Well,
I think it's just, I had this, I'm
Yeah, I
like
did
flipping
too.
back
Yeah.
to page 8.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the IT specialists, I'm looking at the number of schools, I'm looking at the, so you just had difficulty trying to figure out titles of the other schools and like the FTEs that are really working in enterprise systems versus network.
Yes, ma'am, it's because the way they titled the positions, there is no standard within the technology area across school divisions. To give you an example, it took about a 25 to 30-minute phone call with my counterpart at York County to make sure we were talking about the exact same positions when I was gathering this data.
And so these are unique positions. It's not like you've got, so these like 11 from Frederick that are ITs, and then the 4, they're not.
These are, the 11 of Frederick, they are dedicated solely to supporting the network infrastructure.
And then the 4 at Frederick are just dealing with the,
Sorry, the 4 at,
so that's,
Enterprise.
Yeah,
page
we're going
8.
back to to page
oh,
8.
to the first
Trying
one.
to,
yeah, I'm just
Yeah,
trying to
they-
make sense of these 2 charts.
Yes, they are completely different positions, completely different people, completely different specialties.
Yeah, I think it's just difficult with the language, and so I think I would,
The normal people, yes. Regular old people. Well, not that we're normal, but
Well,
Supporting the goals versus some.
Correct.
That's what
yes,
she said.
we're separating them by the goals as well as by what their duties would be. For example, you mentioned the 4 at Frederick County for the previous position. Those 4 are dedicated to supporting the student information system, the grade book, student records. That is their whole purpose in life.
I guess, I'm sorry. I just,
I'm
I
sorry.
wouldn't want someone from the community to look at this and say, wait, they listed this twice. What's the difference? I guess,
Yeah, the difference are the specific duties.
so if there's a way that we can make that more
Yeah,
clear.
One is supporting the database, the other is supporting the network infrastructure.
I get that.
Yeah.
But I'm,
now.
no, I got it before. My concern was someone else on the outside reading this. That was my concern.
We'll clarify the title of the positions and their role if this moves forward into the proposed budget.
I don't think the title is as important as the
The functions.
function.
Sure.
Yes. Yeah, I do get it. I get it that we need it. I want everyone else to get it.
I will do my best to clarify. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So, in summary, we are requesting 1 network technician that would cross-train with our existing network team, perform daily network appliance maintenance, and provide first-level issue response in support of our building-based technicians. This would allow the senior network engineer to focus more directly on security, new technology research, and scalability of our network. I hope that was clear. Yes,
You
ma'am.
have a challenging audience.
Were there additional questions for Mr. Landers?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Currently, we budget for 2 replacement buses in the operating budget, but our bus replacement plan requires replacing 10 buses each year to maintain the smooth replacement plan. We are increasing the budget to include a total of 4 buses to start building the capacity towards 10 buses within the operating budget. Mr. Snipes will now share information related to the request for an additional custodial FTE.
Okay.
Wait, so you're asking,
We already budget for 2 buses, so we're going to add 2 more for a total of 4 within the budget.
got it, sorry.
And so we're building capacity because if we ever have a year where we don't have that ability to buy some at the end of the year, we're going to get way behind again. So we're really trying to build
Right.
our capacity in our actual operating budget for buses.
But if our request isn't fully funded, it's often the first thing to go.
Correct.
Got it.
Mr. Snipes.
Good evening, Madam Chair, school board members. The custodial guidelines for education facilities methodology to evaluate custodial guideline staffing is based on 3 rules. It's based on appearance level, it's based on cleanable square footage, and it's based on the standard spaces. The WJCC standard for cleaning square footage is somewhere between $18,000 and $20,000 per 20,000 square feet, which equates out to about 2,500 square feet per hour. So a custodian, under our standard, should be cleaning about 2,500 square feet per hour, which equates to about 4 to 5 classrooms per hour. Okay. The chart before you shows the escalating square footage by school year and the number of corresponding FTEs. As you can see, from 2017-18 to 2020-2021, our square footage has increased by approximately 108,000 square feet. The increase is a result of adding James Blair Middle School, trailers at Matthew Whaley, and a proposal to add trailers at Stonehouse in Jamestown next year. The budget request for one additional FTE will bring our cleanable square footage back into alignment with at least the level 2 standard of orderly tidiness, and that cleaning square footage would decrease from 23,126 square feet to 22,860 square feet, which equates to 2,850 square feet per hour. So the standard is 2,500. We would get back in line to somewhere around 2,850 square feet.
Other questions? Mr. Snipes?
Thank you, sir.
Adjustments were also made within and between department budgets wherever possible to support the strategic plan. Some examples of realigned budget resources include transitioning to the recruitment module within Munis, our HR payroll system, which will save approximately $10,000 in annual contractual costs, in addition to the efficiencies that we will gain having applicant data readily available in the same system to move over into our employee data files. Technology has worked to redesign the division network, which allowed for a reallocation of approximately $30,000 to support instructional technology. We are also recommending that the IB program at James River be discontinued, which will allow for a reallocation of approximately $28,000. Mr. Walker will now share information related to this recommendation.
Thank you. We would like to share a recommendation for discontinuing the IB primary years program at James River Elementary. During the 2018-19 school year, WJCC schools partnered with Hanover Research to explore the impact of the IB primary years program. The school board received the information during a workshop presentation in May 2019. We will share some of the findings with you again this afternoon. Historically, 2006-07, James River Elementary began offering the IB primary years program to all of its students, school-wide, and opened enrollment to students from across the school division. Out-of-zone participation has dwindled from 50-plus students several years ago to 7 students for the 2019-20 school year. These 7 out-of-zone students are transported daily from 4 school zones: Norge, Matthew Whaley, Claire Baker, and DJ Montague. Student outcome data revealed that students in grades 3, 4, and 5 at James River were outscored by their peers who are not participating in the IB program on the reading and math SOL tests. Longitudinal data revealed that the IB students from James River continued scoring lower on the grade 6 and 8 reading SOL test, and also scoring lower on the grade 6 and 7 math SOL test. 30 parents participated in the survey and generally agreed that the IB program teaches important skills and expressed a desire for a middle and high school IB program. 62 staff members showed limitations with the programming. Therefore, a focus group was held with the James River teachers in June 2019 to gain additional understanding and insight. Here are a few highlights from the teacher focus group. Overwhelmingly, 35 teachers responded that students' ability to think critically would not be diminished without the IB program. You can see a few quotes from the teacher focus group, such as the IB skills and attitudes will continue even without the IB brand. Additionally, teachers shared what they believe is driving student achievement at James River. You will notice the importance of a caring, competent faculty with a student-centered focus, striving to provide a quality education for all students based on need in the chart. The 35 teachers were asked their preference on the next steps with the IB program at James River, and overwhelmingly the teachers' preference is to discontinue the IB program at James River Elementary. 27 teachers of those 35, or 77%. We know the James River Elementary students will continue receiving rich learning opportunities from the competent and caring staff and faculty at James River. All students will continue being immersed in opportunities to experience quality, cross-curricular, project-based learning, infused with many of the IB characteristics, skills, and attitudes. It's simply a part of the culture at James River. Teachers will continue to skillfully plan and deliver quality instruction, embedding many of the IB's skills, attitudes, and characteristics as displayed on the screen, such as critical thinking, collaboration, global citizenship, creation, communication, language of the discipline, and more. James River serves a student population with challenges. Over 70% of students qualify for free reduced lunch, and the school has the highest English learner population of the 9 elementary schools. It is recommended that the students could continue benefiting from the positive services of the one Spanish immersion teacher, as well as support for those classroom teachers with planning for academic language and content. Additionally, the previous IB coordinator position was reshaped this year to provide additional math intervention support for students. Both instructional positions are recommended to remain intact at James River. Additionally, there are some financial savings outlined on the slide. There will eventually be some transportation benefits as the current 7 students matriculate out of the program. And based on the findings shared with you tonight, we recommend discontinuing the IB program at James River for the 2021 school year.
So you're saying 7 students matriculate out of the program, so
There are, I think, currently 3 fifth graders right now, a few third graders, first grader.
so we're going to continue to let those students go to James River until, even without the IB program?
Correct.
That was the statement. That was,
I think that was communicated. There were letters sent to families last year where
Sir.
we purposely didn't take new students last year when this was under evaluation. But those currently attending will be still allowed to go. And I think the current estimate for transportation is about $15,000, which we will save over time.
So of those 7, 3 of them graduate from 5th grade, and then we have,
lose 3 more third graders and 1 first grader.
so they could have the option of going back to their home school. If
Absolutely.
So we have those 7 students that do the IB. How many other of the students there do IB?
It's a school-wide program.
It's a school-wide program.
Are there additional questions for Mr. Walker? I'm just curious with the Spanish immersion, so James River was the only elementary school in the division who offered that curriculum, and so they'll continue to do that at James River?
That was our recommendation, yes. Thank you.
Summarize everything that we've discussed this afternoon and previously. Our total revenue adjustments amount to $4.7 million, and again, this does not include any increased revenue from the localities. Total mandatory or essential expenditure increases amount to $5.5 million, and other expenditure increases total $1.9 million. After factoring in $675,000 in attrition savings, the total shortfall amounts to just under $2 million, which would become our request to our funding partners. This amount represents a 2.2% increase over our current year local revenue budget. I do want to remind everyone that these are adjustments that are being considered for the superintendent's proposed budget. The superintendent's proposed budget will be presented on February 18th. We are still gathering data and cost estimates for various items to finalize that proposed budget over the next several weeks. Again, to put this in context, this chart, as we shared earlier, represents our local revenue over the past 8 years. Not factoring in fiscal year 19, which was the year James Blair opened, that average percentage increase over these years is 2.7%, and the average percentage increase in the first year of each biennium, not including fiscal 19, is 3%.
So just looking, I think it was very important to put our needs in this context this year, which we generally haven't done before, to show that we really have laid out a budget of need, but it's a very conservative ask looking at the historical data. And I know many of us went to the state capitol to ask for support for public education, and we had an interesting conversation. Dr. McLennan and Mr. Eisenhower joined us, and we were very appreciative of that, to go as a team to ask for support for public education. And Dr. McLennan did mention several times that there is a possibility of possibly more funding from the state later in the budget process, maybe. And we were very focused on funding the VRS. We have a mandatory increase in VRS actually included in that increase this year, which we have no control over, and it amounts to $850,000. If you take that out of the mix, we're really asking for $1,141,000, and that's a 1.2% increase. And that's with all of our needed positions that are for our students.
Just to be clear, this is not the superintendent's proposed budget as yet.
That's correct,
So
sir.
there's still discussion and decisions to be made amongst you and your staff before you come propose us the budget.
Absolutely.
I have a question about the IB program. Is that something that the board makes a decision on, or is that your recommendation? I mean, I don't know where the board's,
Let's continue it.
yes, that's my question.
Yeah, I think we brought a lot of information last year to the board, and then the decision about what to do with it, the board suggested, and we would talk together about making that part of the budget process this year. Again, with everything, I make a recommendation, and then the board can agree yes or no.
It's embedded in the budget, because we don't have an IB policy,
Okay,
it's,
so, got it.
So
Thank you.
look forward to your input on that.
Are there additional questions for Dr. Heron?
I sure would like to know what didn't make it. Because I know that list is longer than,
Yes, we do a fairly comprehensive process, looking at positions, looking at needs, and really try to bring what we really need to make us effective in the next school year.
because this doesn't touch bringing teacher assistants into the building, it doesn't touch reducing class size, it doesn't touch, adding
So many
ROTC
things.
or, or whatever.
So you will do your formal presentation of the budget at the February 18th meeting, but we also meet on the 4th.
That's correct.
So there'll be an opportunity there for us to discuss this.
Absolutely.
This is a lot to digest right now, so.
I'm also interested in any board input on any of the ideas presented this evening.
And so again, I guess if board members have specific questions, if we can funnel those to you
Absolutely.
ahead of the February 4th meeting so that you can have those answers, and so we can discuss this in more detail.
Is that going to be on the February 4th agenda? I mean, I was assuming we would not discuss it again until February 18th, but are we, what you just said just confused me.
We certainly can put it as a discussion item if the board needs more time to discuss just the ideas surrounding the budget. But my proposed budget won't be brought forward until the 18th.
Chair.
There will be an opportunity. I'll be meeting with board members in twos as well to get your input.
So, and if we have questions, we can get those to Dr. Heron, so she can answer those on the 18th. Okay.
Thank you.
So do I need to adjourn?
Tell you what happens after you.
Read my disclaimer one fewer times.
We've got 10 minutes to do the next meeting. Okay, so with that, this meeting is adjourned.